All right.
Okay, there we are.
We are live. Welcome, everyone. Comic Book Conservation Live Show episode. Can you believe it? 16. That's almost 4 months, guys.
Yeah, we've been doing pretty good.
I've got my amazing co-host, as always, Phantom Phil from Phantom Restoration, Captain Larry from Flying L Comics. Welcome, guys.
Hey.
How y'all been? How was the week?
Well, I got my daughter off to college.
Congratulations.
So I think that's good. The youngest one, so bye.
Woohoo!
So, and then I still haven't got my air conditioning fixed.
Oh, no.
So the guy's coming tomorrow, so we'll see.
Okay. Yeah, I can hear you now. Can you hear me?
Yep. We got you. Phil. How was your week?
Hectic. Just like trying to get my mic working now. I had to close out the browser, and then I had to disconnect my Bluetooth headphones. It seemed everything was a problem. So we're here now. It's the important thing.
Awesome. So, Phantom Phil, Phantom Restorations, at Phantom Restorations, Instagram. Mm-hmm. Where else? All the links are in the description.
www.phantomrestoration.com.
Captain Larry, Flying L Comics. It's at least Instagram, eBay, YouTube. What else you got?
That's all I got.
Also, all in the description, folks. Check them out.
I'm in Facebook too, technically.
Yeah. So, I had a great week. I'm back in my normal lair, undisclosed location in hill country of Texas.
Welcome home.
It's nice to be home. I have to tell you, I'm a homebody by nature, and you can't travel with like 60 long boxes of comics very easily. So I just miss all my expensive paper babies, in addition to missing my real human babies.
Yeah, I'm still trying to figure out how to set up two shops, one here and one in Europe and Germany. Mm-hmm. I'm working on it, so maybe I'll be doing conservation for our European fans.
You don't really have a choice. Your location dictates where you'll.
That's pretty much about it. So I will be relegated to the basement of the house in Germany. I will have my lair.
Very cool.
Incredible.
So before we get to some shout outs, I want to do another dedication. The dedications are very popular, guys. So 2 weeks ago, it's Father's Day. It was dedicated to all the fathers. Last week, it, of course, was the sexy people. MILFs, DILFs, GILFs, dedicated to the sexy people. I had a few people reach out and say that they watched the show while bathing. So we're going to dedicate the show to the adults that are in the tub right now.
Each their own.
You could be doing a contrast bath. You could be doing a cold plunge. You just be doing a bubble bath. The show's for you.
I'm having problems picturing Shelby in a bubble bath, so I can't get that out of my head.
Welcome, Hugo Danner, Peter, Ben Stewart, Don Carter, Peter. As always, a pleasure to have you along for the show. Welcome. Thank you for all you do during the week in the. I'm gonna do it. In the comic book conservation community. All of you are important members of that community where we support one another and we have a nice collaborative environment where if you don't get enough comic book conservation here, if you don't get your weekly dose here, go find us there, join the club, and hang out and see a lot of great projects progress and ask questions, contribute, be part of the group. Love to have you. Yep. We have a show in 2 parts today. They're a little bit, the segments are a little bit extended beyond our normal segments. I've got one that I'm pretty excited about. We're going to open with the fair market value, but it's a little different than we normally do. It's not a recent sale, but it's just so insane. And there's a book that's up for sale right now. And I want to do it a little bit differently. Rather than say this is the fair market value, I want to say what is the fair market value. Let's talk about it. So I think that'll be fun. hopefully interactive. And then, Captain Larry, you've got a really interesting segment for us. Very different from what we normally do.
Yeah, I do. It was. It's a good segment. We'll get to it in a little bit.
That'll also be a little bit longer than our normal segment. So let's get into it. We'll do some more shout outs as we go. So this is the book I wanted to talk about today.
Tech 33.
Yeah. This is a book we talked about a little bit last week because we were talking about Tech 27, 29, 31, 33. We noticed. And we were talking about these pre-Robin detective comics and how they've just been on fire and how important they are and how much influence they had on the Dark Knight as he is typically depicted today, because he's really been so many things to so many people, written a lot of different ways, from really hardcore to pretty campy and silly. And everybody has their own favorite Batman. For me, it's this early pulp Batman with the holster and the gun on the hip, pre-Robin.
It's okay, I guess.
Yeah. Come on. All right. I'm going to do it, Phil. Here we go. You ready?
Yeah. What are we doing?
We're putting you up there so you can show it off. Oh, here we go. I figured it out. Do it.
Hey, there it is.
Yeah, baby. Thank you for the gun show.
Up in a while, actually, but there it is.
Thank you for the gun show. So I want to talk about this book because there is it again. It's a very important book. Let's go to next slide and discuss. Is this showing up normal for everyone else? I have it sort of highlighted. It's bizarre.
No, it shows up normal for me.
Okay, I got it fixed. So Tech 33, the last issue of Detective Comics published in 1939. 34 is cover dated 1940. First appearance of Thomas and Martha Wayne. First appearance of Joe Chill. First origin of Batman. Of course, that's why Batman, those characters first appear in his origin, right? Prior to that, we just start the story in media res, as they say, right? Yeah. And fourth Batman cover, median grade 3.5, universal only 65 copies. I got to think there aren't that many raw copies out there. It's just too important of a book.
Yeah. It's in that elite class where those, when they see them, it's like, it's treated like it's a 27 in a way where it's like, just get it graded so we don't have to worry about having.
Yeah, I'm thinking if I saw one raw, I would be very skeptical.
Yeah. Normally, when you do see them raw, they have restoration or married parts or something. In their own right, they're still incredible books. They're just not, in terms of value, on a level where people would be really actually scared to handle them at that point.
Right. One signature. Anyone know who it is? I don't. I wasn't able to find it. 38 restored, 4 qualified. Stanley.
It would be pretty funny. Like
one conserved, and we're going to talk about that book a bit today. So,
yeah.
We don't have direct comparisons between our conserved book and the market. It's too rare of a book. It changes hands too infrequently. If you have this in your collection, you do not want to let it go, because there's no telling when you'll see another copy and what you'll have to pay when you do. So we have a sale from a 6.5 Universal. We have a sale from an 8.0 Universal, and we're going to compare them with a sale for a 7.0 conserved. And then we're going to look at the 7.0 conserved, which is offered for sale right now. So the 6.5 here, off-white pages, minor amount of glue on spine of cover. I think if this were a Silver Age or a modern book, that would just get a purple label, but they give us a little bit of room here for something that's this important. They don't want to slap it with the purple label when it's just a tiny spot of glue, because it is so rare. Bottom spine split, center spine restoration, small glue, right bottom front cover crease, spine moderate wear, breaks color. So you would think it's not purple label, but they actually use the R word here.
Maybe it should have been. And maybe it was meant to be, but when it came back, they weren't like, well, let's send it back to make sure they give it the purple label it's supposed to.
Well, the grade category is universal, though. It wasn't just accidentally put in the blue label. And we've seen this before, right? This is not unique.
Well, it was graded in 2013, which is pre-conservation.
That's true.
They had a choice of restoration or universal, and they had to make a calculated decision on which one they should be.
Yeah, I mean the work constitutes it for being that. It's not. It doesn't matter what words they want to use.
I think if it were graded today, it would come back as a conserved.
Maybe purple if it's glue.
Yeah, it's tough. I don't think conserved is appropriate. I think it's either got to be universal. And again, we've seen them provide a little bit of latitude.
They will do this still.
Yeah, there's a little bit of latitude on these books if it's
the golden age. They'll allow 1/4-inch tears and all sorts of things.
So I think my point in showing this though is, I would think you've got to, as a buyer, you've got to take this glue into account. You're probably discounting the book at least a little bit over a 6.5 that doesn't say glue, right? There's always the concern that if you need to sell it, the next buyer is going to do that. Also, that if it ever needs to be re-slabbed, is it going to get slapped in a purple and you're going to lose all your equity, right? So I do think it would have to sell at a discount to a universal 6.5 without that designation. It does otherwise present really nicely. It presents beautifully for a 6.5.
Colors are incredible and structurally, it looks like an 8.
Yeah.
Well, the yellows and the reds are always the hardest colors to keep. So yeah, that's a beautiful book.
So I'm telling you, I'm pretty sure it's sold at a discount to a 6.5 without glue. And this is what it sold for. April 7th, 2022, $192,000.
Wow. That's a house.
Just for perspective for people watching, if I want to say this, when I first moved to New York City, would have been about 10 years ago, just over a decade now. I was working at Comic Connect, and a client bought a copy of this book. It might have even been this exact copy. It was a 6 or a 6.5. And I remember the guy, I showed him my tattoo, and he said, "That's crazy. One of the books I won in the auction was that book. Can I get a picture of you holding it?" And I remember the price, if I'm not mistaken, was about $26,000 he paid for it about 10 years ago. So $26,000 and he told me at the time, he said, "If you really want a copy of this, I'm telling you, sell your art, but anything, like, it's gonna go up. It's gonna." And
he wasn't wrong. He was not wrong.
So if you live in the Austin, Texas area, you pay 8.25% taxes, sales tax. The sales tax on this book is $15,000. So the sales tax on this book will buy you what many people would consider to be a grail.
You get a 15.
You could get an Avengers 1 in 7.0 for that, just for the sales tax on this book. So we're talking big boy books here, right? Big boy, big girl books. I don't want to discriminate. Here's the 8.0 that sold recently. Before we move on, let's talk about the date a little bit. 2022 was a boom time.
It was during the.
It was in the
tail end.
The height of the pandemic, the tail of the real boom in a lot of collectible asset classes. It coincides with the peak for Bitcoin. And so, I would expect this book to not necessarily be worth a lot more than that, even though we're more than 2 years down the road, because we did have some contraction. That said, this is a super rare book, and they tend to break records every time they change hands. So one of my messages here to you, and I think you'll see the rest of the deck is going to kind of provide evidence for this. there's no way to put a real number on these books. They're worth what someone's willing to pay, man.
Well, the thing
once you get over
is when you start messing in the big boy books like this, the buyers that have that kind of fund, they want to pay a little bit more because that sets the value and sets the next bar for what that book is.
Yeah.
So it
sets the precedent that every time this book comes to auction, it breaks records.
Yeah,
it tends to do that.
Yeah, not everybody can do these kind of numbers. That's $200,000.
Yeah.
Sometimes the people going for books like this too, it's funny how a copy like this can come up, and the people right then that are looking for a copy, they only want an 8 or above, and this one just isn't quite as nice as what they want, and it's crazy, but they would let it go, and it's understandable though too, because that's their standard. Meanwhile, the other people that are also interested are people that could drop 50,000 or below for a copy. That's going to be a 2.0 or below. So it's just there's a lot of things like that to consider sometimes when books like this come up.
Yeah, basically it's a money placeholder for certain people. You know, they buy it.
It's an asset class.
Yeah, it's an asset class.
Yeah,
it's gonna increase in value, so it increases in interest, and so you're parking your money, and it's making money for you till you're ready.
Dealers would be happy to see this going and see it at a price. Then all of a sudden, 2 dealers are like, you know what? And then they're like, I'm going to get it, and I'll just put it for 30 grand higher than the price. And eventually someone will buy it because look at this copy. And you know what? They're not wrong.
That's right.
Yep. We're going to talk about that a little bit more in a little while. So here's the 8.0 that sold not too long ago. And boy, does it look nice.
That's pretty.
Isn't it?
I'd rather have a 6 personally, but
I'm pretty sure I want that one.
Yeah.
Let's see. 8.0 universal cream to off-white, moderate tanning interior cover, small crease left center front cover, small crease right top back cover, small stain left center of back cover, small multiple stain center of interior back cover, no glue.
It's okay by me.
This one, I think, flips all the switches, should break records, does break records.
Wow. Holy cow. Yeah, that's big boy money.
It's only more than $250,000. I don't know what you mean.
Oh, yeah. Well,
I think our better halves would question our sanity if we, hey, honey, guess what I bought today?
Yeah, no, it's not happening. Hey, even if you're like, no, I'm giving them stuff in trade towards it, it's like still.
No. You spent how much?
Yeah.
So again, for reference, in Texas, in Austin, 8.2%, 8.25% sales tax, $23,760 you're going to pay in sales tax.
That's nuts.
The sales tax on this book will buy you a car, and not even a beater.
Yeah. Yeah, you can buy a new car.
But that said, again, if you're doing the pre-Robin tech run in high grade, you're never gonna. It'll be decades before you see another one offered for sale, and by then it's gonna be $1 million.
Okay, being a Marvel guy, when does the Boy Wonder actually show up and where? Detective or
Tech 38?
Tech 38.
Yeah. He says soon. It's almost over already.
Yeah, it's just like 37. Okay, what's the cutoff? Tech 37. Okay.
Tech 38, and he's already there by the time Batman gets his own book. So Batman.
The cover to 38 still looks kind of cool. Like it does, despite Robin breaking through the thing. But,
I would.
It's ominous.
I would love to have a Tech 38. I actually would. Yeah. But from there on out,
I'll take it.
Exactly. It's like it stops right where it begins. In my opinion. There's some of those early covers that I think are okay. But like the first technical Joker cover I think is cool.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And then some of the other earlier Batman ones with 15 where he's on the machine gun. Like there's a couple.
Yeah.
But there are very few and far between.
58 with the first Penguin. There's some other very cool books. And then for me, it goes all the way, like I want to go all the way up to like the Riddler's first appearance and other stuff like that before there's books that I'm excited about again. However, we're here to talk about Tech 33 today. So there's two books that bookend our conserved book, this 7.0, which also presents really well. I think this does present better than the 6.5. And, you know, it definitely warrants, I think, a good look in terms of sometimes the conserved books will show, even at arm's length, will show evidence of the conservation, and you don't really see it here. So let's get into the grader's notes. Yeah, conservation includes leaf casting to interior, wraps 7 through 12 married.
It's almost
and then the page quality off-white, graded in 2021. Grader notes include leaf casting 1, 7 through 12 wraps, light staple tears, light wear spine, married 7 through 12 wrap, moderate cover tanning, small piece out of bottom of spine, small piece out of top of spine. Here's my question, guys.
Yeah.
Would you rather have this book or the 6.5 that is universal but glue and frankly doesn't present quite as well? So for me, I think the question is, what do you value more? The originality of the fact that the 6.5 doesn't have married wraps, like all the wraps are the ones that it was born with, or the 7.0 that is, I think, a technical better book, but was not born with all of the wraps that is currently presented in today?
It depends on if you're a purist or not.
Mm-hmm.
So, tough call. I don't know. I think I would. This one presents really well. It presents better than the 6.5, in my opinion. I don't know. I'm not sure. I think I'm leaning both directions.
So if I told you it was even money, even at even money, I think I'd rather have this book.
Really? So okay, so I have one.
I'm on the fence.
You guys don't know what this book.
No, we don't.
You don't know what it's being offered for today.
So for
the even money.
For the 6.5, in the notes, in the grader notes, in addition to the glue, there were details about spine splits, right?
A slight spine split, yeah.
Slight,
it actually
right?
said that it was repaired with the glue. So the spine split was literally glued up.
That's okay. Okay, so this is the way that I'm thinking about it. The 6.5 is an old label book too, back before they were really doing a lot of pressing. Right. So there's already potential on the table for that in addition to the glue. So my mind goes, based on the way it looks, even with the splitting, I can see it potentially even staying the same grade universal. And that is, then you're talking between that and a copy here that's complete, but a third of the interior is from a different copy. And that's one of those things for me where
I'm having a problem
putting them together, but it's a detractor.
Oh yeah. No, I get it. I don't think there's a right or wrong here. I think it's everybody has, like we've talked about before. Phil really doesn't like a dust shadow on the cover, right? For me, it doesn't really bother me. It's sort of like that's evidence that it sat in an attic in a stack of comic books for 60 years, and it doesn't bother me. Some people, I really like my books to be structurally sound. I don't like, for example, a loose centerfold. Some people couldn't care less, right? The book's all there, the staple's there, so the centerfold's loose. Who cares, right? For me, I like them to be structurally still a book. I don't like it to be a book with a loose leaf, sheaf in the middle, for example.
Yeah.
So everybody values these things a little differently. I think that the way this one presents and the fact that it doesn't have glue on it, for me, is worth it. Those are bigger pluses.
It's an unknown for the glue. You really don't know how much is actually
fair enough. It does say small amount, but it.
Yeah.
But it says glue, and it says it does say that the spine, a spine split was repaired with it. So even if it's a dab,
I can understand you err on the side of caution. Though. I get it. Yeah.
I'd rather have this book with the married interior, or partial married.
See,
interior.
I got to go with Phil on this one. I see the potential in the 6.5.
Yeah. Yeah, like
and,
I said.
and
But
I
if it's not all equal, if we're looking
Yeah.
at prices, and I don't know again what this sold for, but I would take a guess without saying a number. When I see conserved books that do sell for, like when I'm on GPA, I'm like, why did that go?
It's
Usually
still a rare
it's because it's like the one qualifier. There's several pages married, or like the first couple wraps, or it's something like that where it's enough that people want to buy it, but you get a deep discount on it. And for me, who doesn't have a copy of this book, this copy here could be perfectly acceptable. It's an understatement. It would be a badass entry-level copy. I mean, an entry-level is relative too, because I'm sure it didn't go for a cheap price.
Yeah, for me personally, when I hear married wraps, it's like kryptonite, and as you guys know, I have an issue today. So, I don't know. I think I would rather have the 6.5 and roll the dice on that one.
All right. Well, you're not alone.
Yep.
This book sold in 2021, so earlier than the other two, and I'm about to put that in perspective for everybody. But this is the last time it traded hands in a public forum.
That's
so for $26,400 in 2021 in Heritage. All three of those closing hammer prices were Heritage prices, and it's currently being offered by Pristine Comics. Yeah. So this is exactly what Phil mentioned. Scooped up by a dealer, offered today for $72,500 direct on their website. They're offering this book for $75,000 through eBay.
Even if they sell it for $50,000, they make money.
Well, yeah, they left themselves a lot of wiggle room on making a profit. So,
but let's talk about okay, so on the one hand, you're like, sure, you bought a book a couple years ago, less than 3 years ago. You're offering it for sale at 3 times what you paid for it. Okay. On the other hand, guys, this is what the 6.5 Universal sold for. This is what the 8.0 Universal sold for. We've seen conserved books sell for the same or even occasionally exceed the last Universal sale. 72.5 seems
this
crazy
is based on the ask price, right?
This is the asking price. This is the 72.5 asking price. Yeah. As crazy as it seems to say for a working class boy from mid-Michigan that 72.5 is cheap for some old funny book. 72.5 is cheap for this old funny book, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think they stole it at the price they bought it at.
Well, every copy of this book is a museum piece, in my opinion. And I mean, I'm biased, but it's so rare and it's so important. And there's like 150 or less total in any condition.
You were in the whole world.
Crazy. Yeah, that is so crazy. Every one of them belong in a museum.
So I'm going to pass the hat around now. Everybody chip in a little bit. We're going to go out and buy this 7.0 conserve.
Who gets to hold it?
As an investment. We all agree it's too cheap not to buy. And I have purchased books from Pristine Comics. They're a great, they're sort of a pillar of the community. So, it's a trustworthy source.
1.5
what do you guys
copies, I think, go for somewhere around 22 to 25, I think. 1.5 Universals or 1.8. I could be off because it's been I think the last time I checked. So I can see how that 7 went for what it did at auction, but I do think, that went under the radar.
It's
so crazy.
Yeah. So in conclusion, first off, these exceedingly rare, super desirable books, they set records nearly every time they go to auction. There is no real fair market value. It's impossible to say. The value is what someone pays today, and that's all there is to say about it. 72.5 to me seems like a freaking bargain. What do you guys think?
I want to watch you talk to your wife about it.
I'll sell some other comics, honey. Really?
As
Well-
time goes on, I feel foolish for still not having gotten one. I mean, I can still get a respectable 2.0 or 1.5 or 1.8, but I mean, pretty soon some of those copies might even be like,
Yeah. They're
I mean, not out of reach, but I'd have to sacrifice.
Well, they're just not
another
there.
$50.
I mean, there's a finite amount of them out there.
Yeah.
I've noticed there's certain books that they like this one where at auction they might not come up quite so often, but there are lower grade entry level copies that some dealers will have kind of kick, just like the one that we saw there, but maybe at a closer, more relatively affordable price. But just based on prior sales, no one's, I mean, $25,000 is still nothing to,
You're going to show up with a wad of cash in a banker's zip-up bag at the Collector Summit, Phil?
Hey, I don't know. I mean,
I got my Collector Summit reference in November 2nd and 3rd, guys.
Yep.
I'm excited. We
We'll
three
all be
will all
there.
be there. I hope as many of you as possible will join us. By the way, tickets still available.
Yeah.
They have not yet sold out, so limited availability. Wonderful venue in Heritage and wonderful group of people. I'm really looking forward to it. It was by far my favorite con experience in the last decade. So, without further ado, that's that segment.
We got some shout outs here.
Yeah, let's do some shout outs. I know Maurice joined us, Starman joined us,
Yeah,
Jerry the
Jerry's
Jitterbug is in
here.
the house. Check him out on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube. He's a veritable source of conservation, knowledge, experience, and entertainment. Travis is here. Good evening, Travis.
Jerry, I'm looking forward to your X-Men 1. I want to see that.
We ready to jump into our next segment, guys?
Sure.
All right. Just give me the, next slide, please, cue. There it is.
Here we are. Now, this is a project that I bought. It's a rare book. It's what I call a quadruple key. You know, I am my knowledge in DC is not as strong as it is in Marvel, but First Legion of Superheroes, First Saturn Girl, First Cosmic Boy, First Lightning Lad.
First Lightning Boy.
Lightning.
Actually.
Well, he turns into.
He gets
Lightning
renamed later.
Lad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So this book, I purchased it as a 1.0. Cover was completely detached.
Raw.
and-
Yeah.
Yeah, raw.
Not in a slab. Mhm.
And in pieces.
Mhm.
So go ahead and roll the next slide.
And we've talked about this book, but
We
just
have.
for perspective, predates First Justice League by 2 years, predates First Avengers, First X-Men by 5 years. I think a really underappreciated book. I love this book.
It is. It
I
is.
really do.
It's
I think-
not a cheap book.
No, and I actually think, for me, of all of the DC teams, Legion has got to be the one that has the absolute most potential for content creation outside of comic books. I mean, with the rotating huge cast that they have and the far off venues that they have, you could do a weekly series on this for the next 30 years and never bore anyone. There's so much potential for this, and I would love to see it. So I'm just throwing in my
Please.
enthusiasm for this book and how important I do think it is and how underrated it is. People talk about the first books of the Silver Age, and you hear Showcase, you hear Brave and the Bold, you hear FF1. Not enough people talk about this book, in my opinion. It's an important
Well,
book.
actually, I didn't. I myself didn't know about it. It came up for a live sale auction on Instagram from my LCS, and I saw it, and I had the money.
Yeah.
So I said, okay, I'll take it. I did have to make an offer on it. They wanted more than I paid for it, but still paid a lot of money for it.
Yeah. I own this book, and the other thing I want to say about it before we move on, the Legion are some cruel modes, man. They literally prank Superboy till he cries.
Oh yeah, they made him cry.
Yeah.
Yeah,
This is 2024 ethics. They would be branded as bullies for sure, and somehow disciplined or canceled.
Yeah.
Bring on the baddies. I love
it. Okay, so when I got it, I got it out and I started doing the evaluation on it, and it was completely split and detached. It was literally in pieces. It had everything that nobody likes. Tide lines for moisture damage, dust lines. There was folds in it. Basically on the spine, the two pieces, one half was just mashed into the other. I mean, there's just about everything. I looked at it as a project.
Mm-hmm.
So, and the spine, you'll see in pictures coming up, the spine was actually split in three pieces where it's just completely torn all the way through. The back was broken in three places through the entire book. So each wrap had to be fixed individually.
It was it was like Batman when Bane was done with him.
Yeah, basically that's what it was. So yeah, I bought it as a 1.0. They asked $1,500 for it. I offered 13. They took it, and off to the races we went. So go ahead and pull up that next slide. So you can see the water damage here. The cover was in two pieces. Again, these are the splits.
I see.
Yeah, it was basically, and that was in three places. So every wrap had a horizontal tear right through the spine.
Some kid read the heck out of this copy.
Yeah, they did. They rolled it up in their pocket, folded it, did all sorts of crazy crap to this poor book. But I like I said, for a 1.0 and a huge key, I said I could work on this.
Yeah.
But you also have to consider this is we're getting into the Silver Age where the paper changed.
Yeah.
So they went to that much weaker, thinner paper. And let's go ahead and move forward.
Well, just a quick comment on the price. Yeah. I mean, raw books are going for $1,000 a point in lower grades, and they go up from there. So that's about fair market value for a book that you're hoping you can get a grade bump out of and create some equity.
Correct.
Yeah, over $1,000 for a one. That's nothing to. That's
not really.
I think we're going to see fair market value a little bit later.
We will. I put a slide in there for
it. But it's worth mentioning here when we discuss the cover or your purchase asset price here.
Yeah. So here, this is the cover going in for being clean. I did 3 washes. In their order. So they had the surfactant in there with a little bit of peroxide, and it was only 3 to 5 minutes for each wash. So go ahead and next slide. So this is what came off of it. Now, if you look at the spine, you can see how those edges are completely folded over.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the entire length of the spine was that way. So basically somebody folded it over, put the pieces into a, on a backer board and put the whole comic inside and close it up, and it lived like that for however long. So the biggest thing I needed to do.
What I'm looking at now.
Gotcha. Yeah, you see it now? Yeah, you got to look at it for a second.
Yeah, so I thought it was color loss, and then I was like, no.
Well, the thing is, if you look at that moisture stain, the moisture stain is after it was folded. You see the tide lines, how they all fold together. So that it was folded for years and years before it even got wet. So it was pretty filthy. So I had to clean it, and I cleaned it. So all right, next slide. So this is what it looked like. We got the edges. They're right there. We got everything cleaned up. It looked nice. Now, this was exposed to blue light. I did suffer significant ink loss. Now, I want to quantify this. When I got the book, there was zero sizing left in the paper. It was paper towel material. And I was rolling
no card, right? So it's
none.
floppy. It doesn't have any
There was nothing
stiffness
left
to it.
So it cleaned really easily, but it also lifted a lot of ink. I lightened it. Went to the blue light chamber, which I'm actually cooking right here. You can see the glow.
I should do all of the show like that.
Yeah, backlighting. So from here, I went into. Now I was not leaf casting at this time. So I did a tissue repair to rebond the halves. I unfolded everything and lined everything up, and I used I think 5-gram paper with the wheat paste 2 layers.
So this book went off to CGC, and we're going to see the end result here.
We will
before the end of this segment. So
yes. All right. Next slide.
Let's just say hi to Volkswagen Gamer. Legion of Superheroes had a long run, very underrated. Agree. Hugo Danner points out before Wolverine, there was Timberwolf by Dave Cockrum over in the Legion. Andrew says, was a lot of money $50? Would your wife have something to say about that too? I think Larry's free of a wife.
I am. I have an
I believe I'm the only host here with a wife. I'm not sure what the angle was there, but welcome, Andrew. And Dan, my buddy Dan, X-Men's Comics, Dan is here. Thank you for joining us, Dan. He doesn't get to join us very often. It's great to see you here.
Well, I have a question about something, but do we want to save that for after? Do you want to continue, or
he's got more? Now? Yeah, he's got more. I think.
Yeah,
it might be answered by some more of them.
Sure.
Okay, so after everything's cleaned, the dust lines are gone. It actually presents really well like this. Now, I have not done the spine repair yet. I've just slid the pieces together to see how everything lines up, and there was not much of a gap, so I was very happy about that. You do have the creases that are running through the cover of the book, but I had to re-wet it for the to do the spine repair, and there is a limitation, folks, on how many times you get these books wet, especially when they have no sizing.
Especially these Silver Age books, man.
These Silver Age DC, especially.
Late 50s through mid 60s, and especially DCs and Charltons.
Yeah, it's they just went to a less expensive paper. They didn't want to make that jump to 12 cents just yet, and unfortunately, they're very difficult, especially the DCs, to work on.
Very unforgivable.
Yeah. I for this vintage, I would much rather work on a Marvel book than a DC book. Yeah.
And
how about you, Phil, the professional in the room? You want to comment on that, Phil, as the professional in the room?
We might have talked about this last time, but just to say it again too, there's a reason you will see DC books from the late 50s, early 60s that are structurally great, that have split spines, pop staples, just because the paper is just so thin and ephemeral and cheap and and unforgiving. It's like, so compared to even some books from just a decade earlier from the Golden Age that are by comparison built like tanks,
or even later,
so much more. It really is. So this book, while it's from the 50s, is basically like it's treated and is just as unforgivable as a AF-15 or an early.
Well, one thing I've found too is on the DCs, they are the dimensional change when you get them wet is way higher than a Marvel. Yeah, the grain of the paper runs vertically, so they get taller and they get narrower.
For those that don't know, paper has a grain, just like wood has a grain, although it has nothing. It's not because of the same structural things going on, but the other thing I think is worth talking about here is that later in time, Marvel and DC books were printed off the exact same presses, right? And I don't know exactly when that started. I think
they farmed them all
in the 70s. But during this period, they had different they had different print press, different print houses, and the paper quality, the staple quality, the production quality all differs. Charlton books in particular are they're rough. They're often miscut. They're miscut badly. There's a lot of printing errors, maverick pages, and other goofy stuff like that in Charlton books. So there was a lot of variability at this point. This is also not a point when the comic book companies were making a lot of money. This was a low point in the industry, in the history of the industry, in terms of the number of readers. This is just a few years post the Kefauver hearings for the juvenile delinquency in the Senate, and the publication of the Seduction of the Innocent. So this was a nadir in terms of the amount of money available, and that meant not a lot of money, not a lot of quality.
Exactly.
The
were just trying to stay alive.
The creators were not well compensated, and there was a lot of contraction in the industry, and this is when a lot of the businesses went under. And through this period, you had over at DC, only Batman, Wonder Man, Superman carried their own books through this period. Green Arrow, Speedy, and Aquaman still were in Adventure Comics, and then of course Superboy was here, but the rest of the superheroes were gone. They were all gone at this point. Marvel had 0 superhero books at the time. So
Captain America was still in ice somewhere.
They were switching to horror books and things like that.
There's a reason why the paper was super cheap. It's because the profit margins were exceedingly slim during this period in the industry. And before we move on, Andrew clarified, what would your wife say spending X on old graded books? We were talking about the $288,000 plus the additional $25,000 in taxes. So that would tip it over $300,000. I think most significant others would say, let's buy a house instead.
All right, I'm eager to see what this thing is going to look like. Yeah.
All right. So back, I did a spot repair on it because I did have concerns about losing ink. Rather than submerge the whole thing one more time, I just got the center section wet, and I applied 2 layers of white Tengoju. It was all done with wheat paste. Shut up. Tengujo. Okay, Japanese paper. How's that? This is an inside. Everybody, this is an inside joke with Paul and I. So, anyway, again, I tried to keep I tried to minimize the moisture going into the paper. So, all right, go ahead and go to the next slide. So here we're looking at these page splits. Now there is 3 of these, and you can see them on the light table. You really can't see them with the light table turned off. So folks, if you're doing this sort of work, I highly recommend a light table, so you can see exactly what you're looking at.
I want to get the same one that you're using here. I've shown a few videos where I have this just small light table that actually is from my old hobby of when I was doing nature photography, and we actually printed real slides.
Actually, I got
so
it right
That's
here.
the one I
it's a
have.
little smaller than what I need, really.
Yeah, this one's perfect. You can fit a wrap on completely on it.
It's the wafer too, and this is not a commercial.
Yeah,
these are great. This is what it looks like in the box, guys. These are
I
awesome.
need to get one of these.
If you want this, just go to my
Absolutely.
Amazon influencer site, and you can buy it.
Absolutely. Yeah. Captain Larry and I both have our own landing pages on Amazon. Actually, speaking of, when I put together the description for this video, I didn't capture that. Larry, send me that link and I'll put it in the description to this video, and we'll carry it forward on future videos.
Okay.
But, that helps us out a little bit. We get a couple of pennies if you order something from there. You pay the same price. So.
Yeah, Phil bought that along with some silk screen, and I made 54 cents.
Nice.
I was excited. I actually made money. Anyway.
4 hours to produce a video, 54 cents in payment.
54 cents.
Yeah.
So anyway, every single one of these wraps needed to be repaired. So in the next slide, I switched over to the tan paper, which you could barely see in these pictures. I apologize. But
Isn't that the point? It's essentially invisible on
that's
this paper.
that is the point. I had to fix all the tears in the staple holes, and I reinforced all the staple holes from the back side, and then we just had to reassemble it. This book did take a significant amount more time than I thought that it would.
What do you got? You got 8 wraps or 12? Or 10?
This one, I believe
12.
this was. I don't know.
I think it's 8. I think it might be 8, but
I think
there's like a
might,
weird time when there's also
I
like
think
10
this was 8 wraps.
Really?
Yeah, I think this was an 8 wrap.
Even still, it's not as bad as a Golden Age book, but even doing 8 wraps is an arduous, time-consuming, tedious process that involves patience, and this work looks excellent.
When I pick up a Golden Age book, I look at it and I just cringe because I know there's 16 wraps in there. So,
well, yeah, okay. GCD lists it as 36 pages.
Okay, 36. There you go.
So
yeah,
8 is correct, right?
There's our wrap count. 8 wraps plus the cover. So yeah, I just reinforced everything. So again, now this was done. I do methyl cellulose on the wraps because it's more transparent and it's a little bit more flexible. Wheat paste for the covers, just for the sheer strength. So that's a lesson I learned from Dr. Paul. So
Maurice has got financial advice for everybody here.
Yeah. Oh, that's right.
Save those
54% down payment on tech.
Save those spiffs from Amazon. Invest them wisely. Get yourself a Tech 33. That's where it's at, baby.
Yeah, I would love that. Okay, so let's take a look at the overall big picture of this book. It is a valuable book. If you look at the sales data, there is not a lot of sales in recent sales. Just in last year, there was a 7.0 for $9,500. A few other things in there. The only thing that's trading, of course, with these books, you are looking at the workable area of 2.5 to 4 on the average for these books. And even down, I mean, you look down at a 1.0, it's $850, which is more than what I paid. But I can't remember when that sale was, but it was a while ago. But nothing real recent to do any real comparables here.
Mm-mm.
So I think we can go to the next slide.
For reference,
Yeah.
median grade here, 4.0.
Yeah. That sounds about right.
485 universal total. I mean, all your other Silver Age keys, way more copies in the census than that. This really is
very incredibly rare and high grade. The unicorns.
Oh yeah, that 9.2.
It's such a tough book.
Yeah, that 9.2. I mean, that was 15 years ago that it was sold. So it would be worth a small fortune today.
I should have brought my copy to the studio here and showed it off.
Yes,
today,
you should have.
Maybe next time. Go ahead, sir.
Okay, so now we're back looking at this is a 1.0 universal I was just talking about. Recent sales that I could find 2022. They're all over the place. There's a $1,200 one that was during the tail end of COVID, and everybody's going crazy. And 900, 960, 1,000. There's no consistent price to go by, and using the algorithm that Go Collect uses, 850 is what they came up with.
Yeah.
Did I overpay for it? Yeah, I don't know. I don't think I did. I think I paid a fair price for the.
I think you paid fair market value for it.
I think I did.
I do.
I think I did.
Because your book was above a 1.0.
Yeah.
What do you given the tight inventory on this book? What do you think this book does if they announce a live action Legion of Superheroes, either movie or like a franchise like show?
I don't know if they were to touch something like that. I think it would explode.
I think this book would go off because like the
Yeah.
inventory is just so tight.
Yeah, it's
on
so
this
tight.
book.
So
It's insane.
people would dive on the thing. Now, do I think they're going to make a live action one? That's for that vintage is for the older generation, the kids today. They the teenagers. They don't know what this is.
There was a Legion of Superheroes cartoon a while back. There's some younger folk that like this content.
Yeah.
So when I say younger folk, I mean people under 50.
Oh, whippersnappers.
all our retirees that are watching Saturday morning. Okay, yeah, I got it. So here it is. So it came back at a conserved 1.8. Now it suffered significant ink loss during the process. And it was just like it looked good, and then it was one too many times in the liquid, and out it came. So the spine was completely rebuilt. I rejoined both halves, and if I recall, there was a error. I think when I did the pictures you saw were from the second joining. The first joining, it was terrible, and I had to strip it and redo it. No fillers on the chunks missing. You don't want to do that because I still wanted that conserved label. Now, looking at this and knowing how to leaf cast now, would I redo this? I would not. It's just there's too much damage done to
too much ink gloss already.
Too much ink gloss. If I did, I'd have like a invisible book, and it's just not worth it. So anyway, yeah, that's how it came out, and I still have it right here.
I saw it on eBay.
Yeah,
because I search for Adventure Comics 247 every day.
Mm-hmm.
It's a key that I keep track of. And I saw this book, and I said, "Is that Larry's book?"
It is Larry's book. It will live there for a little while, and then when I get enough books together, then it'll probably end up over at Heritage and roll the dice and see where it goes from there.
Larry, I have a question I guess just a question. So when you were doing this, like if I was. I guess I'll approach it like if I was doing it. So, would you or I would resize the paper with methyl cellulose in between the washes. Maybe not necessarily in between all the washes, but it would add that extra protection, and it would get washed off in the wash too, but still allow the paper to be washed.
Well,
it's just having to re-add it, and then it also comes with complications too. It's not just a straightforward.
Here's where I think I had the ink loss actually, is I did resize it in the last wash, and when you resize with methyl cellulose or anything else, it is going to loosen the bonds of the paper that are retaining the ink. All that ink came off in the very last wash. And when I resized it, it was in there a minute. And that's all it took. Once that paper gets saturated with that agent and gets in there, it just kind of wiggles loose all the bonds holding the paper together and the ink to the paper, and it just floats off. So I like what you said about doing it between the washes. So.
To be clear, Larry, when you say you resized it in the last wash, you mean you had methyl cellulose in your last bath.
Correct. Or
so it was a full submersion.
I think I used rabbit glue on this particular
a sizing agent.
It is a sizing agent, just like methyl
final
cellulose.
Bath.
But in the bath.
The way that Phil would recommend you do this.
Paul, I'm glad you made that distinction, because my brain wasn't making that distinction.
You brush yours.
Exactly, and I think that might be the difference. So
That
it's
could
just
be the
direct
difference.
contact.
Now, are you
It's direct
brushing
contact.
the inside of the cover, or the whole outside of the cover?
So
How are you doing?
I would say any area that needs protection. So you can see it when you're looking at it, where there's areas, especially the areas with the stains. You can see whatever caused the stain took that protective layer off. So whenever I do some bats, those are the areas that I'll hit, and almost I'll only hit those areas, and or like the whole masthead where it's gonna, or the top edge. It's something I can't describe. I can only say the more you do it, the more your eye will see areas where you're like, you'll just do a wash and be like, oh, I took color off of that area. That should have been an area I should have protected, because you can't do the whole sheet. Then you're like, you don't want to add unnecessary moisture from the methyl cellulose.
That's the thing, because I was doing
caveat.
the whole sheet, and a couple of things that I worry about would be shrinkage, especially doing the whole sheet like that. And I was also concerned with brushing it on, and how it dries and things like that. Also, shrinkage. And
I never get issues. I
know, and I haven't really. I need to try a different method, your method, and
maybe your methyl cellulose too isn't as viscous as what I'm using. Like the consistency could be a part of it, and that could be a big part of it.
Yeah, that could very well be, because what I was trying to do is get some sizing back into the paper, and it's always I'm hit and miss. I get about I'm 50-50 really on getting it in and having real success. But in this particular case, I will blame that last wash in the sizing agent.
Mm-hmm. And Phil would have done this differently based on his experience, but I think it's similar to what Peter does here, which says, my experience with methyl cellulose. Also, I prefer sizing with gelatin at the very end, and I brush mine outside and inside. I assume that means cover only, Peter. You
not the wraps. Yeah.
Gelatin is the original sizing of choice for paper makers going back a millennia, and works exceedingly well. And it's quite stable.
Museum services, Larry, as we know, is a great resource to get stuff from. In the leaf casting section, they have methyl cellulose as one of the few supplies to be casting with as an additive too. But then for specifically what we're doing, and then I don't think I answered your question, just to go back like 2.5 minutes to, it is definitely both, like, so both sides. And you look at the stain, you gotta, it's like the armor on the paper, you gotta think of it like that. Like, so it's definitely both sides. Anywhere that the paper is going to be able to seep in, like that's like an exposed area.
Yeah.
Peter, confirmed cover only. Both sides of cover, though, with gelatin.
So looking at this book, as a conserved, I was actually pleased with the 1.8, because I wasn't sure where it was going to go, because it looked really horrible.
It doesn't look that bad overall, really. Like, I know, like, there's, you're not happy with it and everything, but like it definitely could have been worse.
It's kind of like having a steak and somebody says, yeah, that was a really great piece of meat. Yeah, until I cooked it, and then I destroyed it. Yeah. So it's just like,
you have a few more slides. Do you want to discuss this over the sides, or do you want to stay here,
let's
Larry?
Move on to the next slide.
But I want to talk to you about how you feel about this book overall. And I think actually Jerry has a comment. I think this is relative to, actually, I'll stay here for a moment and we'll highlight this comment. Because I think it's relative to your image here. You have to measure interior of the book, folded before you join the split cover for proper coverage. I think he's seeing here what looks like either some spine roll or a cover that is
you look at the
experience some shrinking in the horizontal dimensions. So
I'm almost
the interior wraps
with all the chunks out of it. It almost looks like it might have been trimmed as well, but I don't know. But Jerry's 100% right. This, like I said, this is pre-leaf casting, and I've only joined a few actual In fact, this is probably one or two of just the Silver Age covers that I've rejoined. Everything else has been Golden Age, and those are easy.
So was this
Such a
cover?
difference.
So did this cover experience like horizontal shrinkage during the process, such that that's why we see some of the interior here, or was it that you had a little bit of spine roll left that you
It
could
looks like
see
there
a
is a
lot?
little bit of a roll.
Yeah, there was a little bit of a roll. That spine is complete rebuild with
Yeah, and it was
Japanese
brittle.
paper.
Yeah.
And there's a little bit of a roll there, but you look at the jagged edges on both the front and the back of the cover. I think there was definitely some shrinkage, but I also especially on the front cover, I look at it and I'm wondering if that's the actual edge, if it wasn't trimmed or something along that
So I think
line.
there was some contraction in the horizontal
Yeah, I think
axis
there was contraction.
process. So it's more in the washing and the contraction that occurred than it is with your actual joining, though. Your
Yeah.
joining is you're just opposing the paper edges and you're
Yeah, I opposed
doing,
paper edges and
Larry,
just bond them.
Can I just say one consideration too? This is something it took me a while to notice it, and that is books with split spines. I would be looking at it assuming sometimes, especially Golden Age, that there would be paper missing enough that they weren't perfectly jointed areas. And the reality is, I mean, unless it's super beaten, there's always enough paper there that there's areas where it's joined. And if all the paper's there, there isn't enough that's missing throughout the whole spine. Chances are it's actually all there in more cases than not, in my experience.
Yeah, because you think that's the stress area of the spine.
Yeah,
So if there's going to be any pulling, it's going to be right there, especially when it dries after being wet.
Yeah. I mean, from the before images, this book looks scary to me. It looked brittle. It obviously had suffered previous water damage. And one of the things that we've been talking about, and I don't know that this is known by everybody. Maybe some people are like, oh yeah, everybody knows that. I'm not sure, but it occurs to me, and in my experience and a few others that have shared, is that if a book has had previous water damage, it's much more likely to suffer additional damage under an aqueous bath.
Correct.
Than if it has not previously been exposed to water. And I think that is because long-term exposure to water will remove sizing from the paper. And so it doesn't have any of that hydrophobicity that provides some protection to the ink layer. And so I would have been, I would have been very afraid of tackling this book. So
it after the 3 baths, if you remember, it still looked good.
Yeah,
it wasn't until that last bath.
If I'm ever giving a bath to a cover like this too, where I see like a lot of creases in the front, those would be areas too that I would just hit a quick pass with some methyl cellulose to be like protection at the crease, because that's an area where there's color loss. Water's going to get in there and just make it just a little bit bigger and a little bit bigger, and like you won't notice it unless you're looking at the before and after pictures really strictly. You'll see like, nope, it was worn and now it's a little more worn.
Because that white line is literally exposed paper fiber.
It's so subtle.
What you're looking at.
So subtle.
You're looking at broken, exposed paper fibers.
Yeah, sadly that white line didn't show like that before I got my hands on it. It shows now. So here we are.
Notes.
The grader's notes. Conservation includes tear seals to cover, spine split to cover, reinforced, and staples replaced. This came to me with strange staples in it. So I did use vintage staples and with the right patina and everything, but they still will call that as staples replaced. Yep. So there's a lot of notes here. On the grader's notes, full left cover was reinforced, which we talked about. There was no spine, basically. It had to be completely rebuilt. Moderate creasing, moderate pieces out of the cover, moderate wear, all edges, spine split, sealed, full center spine conserved, staples replaced, tear seals, full center spine conserved. So they didn't go to a purple label, which they could have easily on this book. I think with all the stuff that was missing, I thought
think it's a testament to the work you did.
Yeah, I
that
think
you-
it was a very
and conserve.
generous reward to have it conserved. To be honest,
I've seen books that have that much color loss from washing. They give a purple label to. So
Mhm.
yeah, me too. And that
Yeah.
I when it came back conserved, I was like, I was happy, you know, because it
Mhm.
could have been a
that's what Paul
1.8.
said. It's
Yeah,
a
it could have been
testament
a
to the rest of the
1.8.
work that you did on it. So
1.8 restored, and to me that would be almost.
it looks like natural kind of abrasion too, the way that you did it. I mean, it does. If you don't know the story of the book and you look at it, you see it, but you wouldn't be able to say that this happened because of this reason. And
Right.
that is, when you think about it, not that bad of a defect, other than, oh my God, someone did this.
Yeah, it's like
It's a difference. Yeah.
well, it's like Matt Nelson said. I mean, they can only grade the book that's in front of them.
Right. And speaking of, did you send in grader's note? Did you send in, console
did.
notes?
I send it anything I do conservation. I am sending in notes with details of what I did. So,
And that may have had an impact here in getting the conservation grade.
I'm starting to think that they they drift a little bit that way. Now, like several people, I've got a couple of A1 graded books that are purple labeled, which I think should be conserved. And I sent one back. They have it now, so we'll see what they do with it.
Yeah.
So, all right. So, kind of hard comparables. Again, there's not a bunch of sales, and the ones that are there, they're all over the place. So it's got a sharp hook. Now, for 1.8 and using Go Collect for $1,100, that would show a negative of $200 there, plus all the grading process and stuff. So on this particular book that I probably should have stayed away from, I think I had a loss of equity. Now, the 1.8 there on the conserved census, that is this book.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Larry, you're a big man to show this. There's some people that would not want to show this job as a learning experience, and I think ultimately too, really, like, it's you did a lot of good. You did some stuff that it is a learning thing, but overall, the book is still a collectible copy. It's okay. It's okay.
I am disappointed in how things turned out, of course, but when I make mistakes, I'm a teacher. I want people to learn from mistakes as well as successes. So when I make mistakes, don't do what I do on this book, and I do that on my channel too. If I make a mistake, and I hone up to it. I don't try to hide anything. But yeah, this was I lost equity in this book overall. So
but you learned something.
I did learn something. I learned I hate Silver Age DC.
Unforgiving. Yeah,
they are very unforgiving books. I'll stick to my Marvels and my my Golden Age. Those are stuff I could work on. But yeah, this
fair.
This tissue paper is hard.
I think there's a lot of folks who actually will only show work on Golden Age books because of this. And so I think those of us that are occasionally showing content on Silver Age books, whether they're DC or Marvel, which I've done a fair amount of both on my channel, we are opening ourselves, there's a little bit of vulnerability there. We're opening ourselves up to criticism because these things can and do happen with these books. And I also want to just voice my support and appreciation in you showing us this book, walking us through your process, talking about some of the mistakes you made. And let's actually go back to that specifically. What if you had this book today and
I would have leaf cast it,
roll back time, right?
What
would you do with this book differently?
I would leaf cast it.
Yeah.
I would filled it in, leaf cast it. It would have been wham bam, everything's done. That would be my big change. When I did this book, I was still building the vacuum table at this time. So my only skill set that I had available was using Japanese paper and wheat paste like I practiced before. Now everything I look at it, and then I've had a lot of practice with the leaf casting now. I would absolutely leaf cast this book, and it would have been much higher grade. So
Phil, would you recommend methyl cellulose brush on prior to the leaf casting here?
If
we had the time machine and we were going back,
I even think as a certain thing, because like I'm thinking certain things in my head, and I do kind of toe the line of I want to engage in the conversation as much as I can. There are certain things that are kind of like trade secrets where it is things that it took a long time to learn, certain things, but something like this is something that is so straightforward to me that really will just help. And also, again, in part two, this just goes to show there's a lot of hands-on, and I think it is. We just see a lot of success stories, and this just goes to show to some people that it is very easy sometimes just to be going along the process. And as you mentioned there, you're so familiar with Golden Age books. This is right on that line, and it seems so familiar, but sometimes there's variables in these comics that can kind of lead you on a roller coaster of unexpected surprises. And really, honestly, for how this could have been, this like, I don't want to throw anyone under the bus, but there was someone that destroyed a Hulk 1 doing some things earlier on in this hobby, and so people have made completely destroyed the book. There was nothing left of the book. So this is a collectible copy. It's a learning experience.
When I first
Jerry says very graciously, "Don't beat yourself up. I destroyed many books."
Yeah,
but we enjoyed it. It was entertaining the entire time, Jerry, and of course, you also enhanced many books. So, but thank you for being so gracious here.
Absolutely, thanks.
Destroying us means that you've just learned a lot. So.
Well, and I practiced on some garbage books before I went live with doing a lot of stuff, and some of those garbage books, turned out okay. Some turned out to be garbage. I look at some of the stuff that I've done and gone back and go, man, I'd like to redo that book, and
revisit it.
Yeah, if I could revisit this book, if I didn't have all the ink loss, I would definitely have approached it from a different angle and done the leaf cast on it. I think that would be the big difference today.
Yeah, well, I think we're all looking forward to additional content.
Yeah,
and seeing the next book that gets the Flying L treatment.
Well, that would be the Batman book. It is with CGC right now, and I am waiting to see how that comes out. I cannot wait to see Jerry's X-Men one. That one is I followed that one from beginning to end, and I can't wait to see how it came out because I think he did an absolutely stunning job on it. So. He said this week, so we'll hold CGC to it, Jerry.
All right. I don't see necessarily any other comments that I want to highlight at the moment. Travis does say, I would love to see a segment on the various uses of methyl cellulose and wheat paste, pros, cons, preference, best practice, etc. I think Larry and I have both done videos on that in our catalogs, but we could consider doing this show. We're normally not doing as much
discussion
that it's more discussion and projects, but we could consider doing a segment in the future on that.
Yeah, I agree with that, Jerry.
So what's coming up in the coming week, guys? What do you have coming up? What do you have going on?
Let's see. Coming up, I started a project that has gone completely sideways on me. that I discussed with you guys offline.
Oh yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
I acquired a Superman 55 that was a green label.
That's right.
It showed tape all over it. It was a tape monster. I pulled off so much tape, and as it turns out, it had the wrong back cover on it, which Phil actually caught. And I checked it out, and sure enough, they graded it. Did not even notate it.
CGC missed it.
CGC missed it.
CGC
and
A missed the fact that the back cover was married. B missed the fact that someone
Yeah.
had married the wrong back
one.
cover to the book.
Yeah, and the seller I got it from was a reputable seller on eBay, 100% feedback, 2,000
It was
plus.
already graded.
I
So
mean, it
it's
was
not
already
on the seller.
graded. At that point,
was
it's not
graded.
on them. Yeah.
Yeah, he was just passing through his hands, and I
Oh.
have no ill feelings towards that. I disappointed, and it was graded in 2021, so it wasn't that long ago.
To
And
their just to say it, and like obviously they did it wrong, but for what it's worth, the cover that was there, the outside cover, the one that was supposed to be there is red, and this one looked red, so it wasn't like it was
it's close.
glaringly obvious.
And
But
yeah.
once you knew to look, and then you looked, you're like, oh, it's the wrong ad. But it wasn't just.
Yeah,
so,
and
I mean, they're humans, but they should have caught
well,
it.
the thing is
definitely
the people they have grading the Golden Age books at CGC, they're not kids. These are experts. And I expect to see a guy with glasses and
A gray beard.
a gray beard and looking at it very closely. And
the magnifying glass.
yeah, this one went right past them, and it's nobody's fault really.
Yeah.
But CGC's and
Larry, I do feel
But-
I feel bad because I know you started a lot of work. I see the look in your face right
I
there
know.
because I know
Yeah.
I've been
But
in a
we should
similar
say
position.
too. We should say
So-
too. To be fair to CGC, we are calling out an error in their work.
Yeah,
Not yet contacted them, so we don't know.
Yeah,
if they're
that-
going to offer to fix it or
I am
compensate
going
you
to call them
or whatever.
tomorrow.
So
And see.
They
what
have a
they say.
history of rectifying things like this.
Yeah, they
My
do. And
experience.
I'll talk to them. They made a mistake, and
Yeah.
unfortunately, I paid for it, and
Yeah.
and so I am continuing the book. All the wraps are done basically. I just finished cooking them here in the blue light, so the cover is the only question mark, and it's in pieces and it needs to be leaf cast. So I'm not going to leaf cast it to the wrong rear cover, but I will
now
leaf
you're on the
cast.
hunt for
Yeah, I'll
page.
just to keep all the pieces together. I'll leaf cast the front cover and leave it as a standalone, and I'll keep it untrimmed. And something comes
Wait,
along
to be
that I
clear,
can marry
you
it.
mean cast a half page of paper, or
Yeah, just
What do
the
you
front
mean?
cover. I'll put a border because it's in several pieces, especially around the spine, and
Yeah.
I don't want those pieces, floating around. So I'll put them into position, cast it, and should I come across a donor book that has a good back cover, I can marry that and then submit it as a married book, or look for a book that's just got a full cover that's
Yeah,
marriable.
fair
Well,
enough.
because
Regardless, it's going to be a
the rear-
married book.
Yeah, because it's the rear ad page. There are other books possibly printed that same month, and maybe some of them are cheap. Like maybe it's Bob Hope's
Buck and
Adventures.
Yeah,
Mutt and
this
Jeff from that
we
month.
just kind of discovered it today, so it's just
Yeah.
I really haven't looked. So
So I
but
think
yeah.
there's some work to do on that front in terms of figuring out what other books were published that month, how many of them have the right house ad on the inside, how many of them have the correct non-house ad on the outside.
A transition
And,
real quick. I'll show you
Yeah.
one thing that's on my desk here. A couple of inside house ads from an early time. Just to show. Look at
Oh,
this.
wait.
Look at that early
Let me
Captain
do-
America.
That's
Let me do-
awesome.
Oh,
Yeah,
let me
switch-
do
switch
this.
I have to be
Gotcha.
careful. So I removed tape, but there's still adhesive. I just removed the carrier. but you
Yeah,
can still see.
that I'm very familiar with.
Oh
Damn it, adhesive.
man, I love
Yeah.
the house ads, and also
Yeah.
the ads for like the premiums
Yeah.
and such. Yeah, right there, the premiums. Look at the
that's really
shield
cool.
you could get. The badge.
Isn't that so cool?
That is
Badge is
cool.
insane. That's
Phil,
right
what
up there
is
with
a
the
single
junior
copy?
JSA badge.
Yeah, what book is that?
You want to see? Okay, I have to be careful because
Well, you don't
there's
have to. You can
research,
just
so
tell. You
I
can tell us.
I can do it like this.
Don't
He's a
stick
trained
it.
professional, boys and girls.
Okay. There it is.
It's the one
Yeah,
with
pretty cool.
Hitler coming into the tunnel
That's the Hitler book. Yep. You get
into
such
the New
cool-
York tunnel too, in our city. That scumbag.
You get such cool books. It's a cool book.
You guys have any cool pickups?
Yeah, I got some stuff that's going to show up here tomorrow. So
I was gone. I'm gonna see if I can show off. I was gone, as you know.
your banner
nice.
is right
Yeah, there you
across
go.
both of those books.
The Boy comics and the Nickel
Can
comics
you-
and the
can you
Uncle
tell-
Sam with the skeleton.
Oh, I
I
can
love that
Yeah,
cover
tip
so
your
much. That
camera.
National
There we
Comics is
go.
so
That's
nice.
what I wanted. Yeah.
I love that.
So some of you know that I'm kind of obsessed with the Golden Age of comic books. The book published in 1977 by Richard O'Brien. That's
Your centerpiece.
center here. Boy Comics 10, just adjacent to that, is featured in that book and is an exceedingly rare book featuring Nazis and Iron Jaw, and it's
Iron
awesome. Nickel Comics #1, also immediately adjacent to the book, also featured in the book. And I told a little anecdote before about how my dad used to always tell me when I was a kid when comic books were 50 cents. I remember when they were a nickel. And I was like, Dad, they were never a nickel. Action 1 is a dime. So
You were wrong.
yeah, it turns out if you were poor enough, they were a nickel. And Nickel Comics is
Or
I
thrifty
love
enough.
yeah, and the fact the Nickel Comics have these great covers. That's a Fawcett publication. The Boy Comics is a Lev Gleason. They have these great covers, and they're just really they're very dynamic and well laid out, and I just love them. It's actually a relatively short run too. And then National Comics, National has a couple of really famous Lou Fine covers that are highly sought after.
Hold down that one up above you with the skeleton and show that in the camera. If
one of them is
can, 'cause
number 7, but my personal favorite is this one, number 16.
This is my favorite for the whole run. It's so classic. And that is such a nice copy too, Paul. Man, a nice VG. Oof.
Oh wow! I didn't
Look at
notice
that.
the skeleton.
It's awesome.
Yeah, that
So this
skeleton
is-
cover is really cool.
This is Lou Fine at his finest, in my opinion.
And
So
one thing,
Uncle Sam has grabbed this green skeleton
Love it.
in Nazi garb with a mace by the neck. And they're both gigantic. Why, I'm not sure. But the skeleton is so large, it's picked up
Bullshit.
a naval
ship, yeah.
battleship in one hand. I mean,
It's awesome.
there's a
Yeah,
reason why
copy.
it's called the Golden Age of comic books, boys and girls. Look at that.
That's a cool cover. Anytime you get these wartime covers or Nazi covers or skeleton covers, you got it all right there.
Yeah.
Especially
also-
with the reds. That's a
Yeah.
superior copy. Nice
That's
job.
That's a fantastic.
Thank you.
copy.
Yeah. Also, yeah, exceedingly rare cover. I've got Hit Comics #1 up here. That's also a recent acquisition. Hit 1 is not featured in O'Brien's book, but there's another issue of Hit also with a Lou Fine cover that's featured there. So, Mike says, love Lou Fine's art. Didn't he draw Dollman and Finn? I'll be frank, I don't know if that's true or not.
I don't know, but Lou
I bet
Fine,
He probably knows
artists.
better than I do.
Well, the other thing is artists. Even in the modern books today, the story is not as nearly as important as the when people are buying the art that are on the cover, from moderns to the coppers to the golden age. I mean, we used to buy them for the stories, and now people are looking at who did the art. And if you get some of these pulp books, those artists did make their transition over to comic books, and those are the ones that you start looking for. For me, I like to find any Schomburg cover. Those World War II Schomburg covers.
Yeah.
Oh my God, I love those books.
You're not alone. Those are, especially the timelies, are so expensive. There's a huge premium on those.
Yeah, I have one Schomburg cover that is coming up here at Heritage at the end of the month, and so they did put them in the pre-sale. There, I saw 36 books there, so it'll be
cool.
I'm looking forward to see them go live.
You've got stuff coming up. Hugo Danner has some original art coming up too. As we get closer to those auctions, we'll feature them here. Okay. We'll just give people a pointer to them. It's funny. I remember listening to a Stan Lee interview where he talked about the importance of the interaction between the story and the art, and his conclusion was the art's more important at the end of the day, because if you can't grab somebody's attention with the art, they're never going to read it to know if there's a good story, right?
I agree with that 100%.
I tend to agree with him. Yeah. When I look back at my favorite comic books as a kid and even as an adult, they're always had exceptional art, and without really good art, even the best story is difficult for me to really get into. It's such a visual medium, right?
Well, that's why I liked the covers. I mean, like the one you had. I mean, it's so busy with fantastic stuff. The cover is saying a lot just in the art.
Yeah, this is kind of a grail for me, folks. For those of you that wonder,
awesome book.
Yeah, for those of you that wonder, like, what really flips my switches now? I've collected most of Marvel silver through bronze and even into the copper. I have almost all of it that I'm interested in, and I have a lot of other keys. I've been collecting a long time. So hunting down stuff like this is sort of the last, chase for me. And this is a book that I have been seeking for over 20 years.
Oh, so congratulations on finally.
I was thrilled.
That's an awesome book.
Yeah, I was thrilled to get this, and I feel like I got a really good price on it. It was about $500 under the last comp, if I remember correctly.
Great.
So, yeah, I mean, we've talked about this on the channel too. For these books that are this rare, and I don't have the exact number on that, but for sure that's fewer than 50 in the census. I don't know if it's 20 or 30, but it's a low census count. Typically, you just have to kind of pay whatever you have to pay when it comes up, or else you're never going to own it, right?
Yeah.
So when I can get them at a little bit of a discount to the last sale, it's chef's kiss for me. That's what I love to do, because again, I've said it before, but a lot of the satisfaction for me is the hunt more than the owning of the thing. I like to have the thing, but the thing,
yeah, it's just
what are you going to do? Stare at it and pet it, right? Like, I enjoy it. It's cool to see, but the hunt and the interaction, the folks that I bought it from, or, the camaraderie around the community, to me is worth a lot more than the actual owning of the book. So,
Larry, I see that in you so much right now. You're going up, because I see you in sending the chat, books that you see with potential. Because I say that in addition to the fun and kind of not the flip, but just the owning of it and the hunt,
the excitement.
Sometimes it is in the experiment. Like for us, in the small group where we have put in the time to be able to do some of the work where we can create equity in it. There's that thrill in getting a book and adding all that equity and selling and being like, that
to me is the thrill, is to add the equity.
Yep.
When I get a book back that I've worked on and I've created equity in it, it's very exciting. That is the goal. It's just like, damn, cool. And these boxes behind me, they're all my personal collection from childhood Silver Age books, and I'm going through all of them, and I'm turning them into high dollar Golden Age books in the collection. So
32 Universal on this book, guys, and also
That's
There's a-
that's low population.
There's a lot of meat left on the bone. Look at the back of this.
Oh, so
Are
it has
you
a
gonna-
spine roll. Yeah,
Look at
are
how much meat there is left on the bone.
Are
of this
you
book.
going to crack it?
do it.
I'm not in a hurry to do that, but it will be eventually done. Because there's
Okay.
just too much meat left on
You
the
just
bone
can't.
here.
You can't resist, can you? You want to
No.
bump that.
Also, look at
Love
that.
White pages.
White. That's what I said. White.
Wait.
that.
All right, guys. Anything else we want to say before we say goodbye?
I think we're good.
I really appreciate everybody joining us today. Appreciate you guys, my hosts. Appreciate Peter for saying congrats on the acquisition of that book. It was very satisfying. Thank you. I appreciate it. Until next week, have fun. Take care of one another.
Happy 4th of July, everybody.
Happy Independence Day. Bye-bye.
All right. See ya.